Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast, hosted by Renita Davis, licensed clinical social worker, board-approved social work clinical supervisor, and facilitator of the Goddesses of Social Work supervision community. Join us as we travel through the social work journeys told by the Goddesses of Social Work community members, past and present, as they make their way toward clinical licensure.
Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you could join us. I'm your host, Renita Ray, and I'm here today with Alexis Rivers, LMSW. Alexis Rivers, medical social worker with 5+ years in case management, passionate about making changes and helping those in need. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, exploring new restaurants, and spending time with family. Alexis is the LMSW, currently working as a traveling medical social worker, specializing in case management and discharge planning. Alexis has been doing discharge planning for the past 2 years, but just recently started her traveling experience in this field 5 months ago. Alexis began her social work career shortly after graduating college by working in therapeutic foster care. Alexis is also currently under supervision pursuing her LICSW. Welcome to the podcast, Alexis.
Hello.
Alexis, my new favorite area of social work is travel social work, and your journey is new on this traveling path. What is one of your favorite things thus far about being a traveling social worker?
One of my favorite things about being a travel social worker is, of course, going to new areas. I love travel already, and then I'm traveling and doing my job. I'm going different places, exploring new areas, and also the best part is learning how the same issues get resolved in different places. And when I say issues, I mean with discharge planning, there are certain goals that we have to accomplish, and just seeing how certain policies work in different state laws. I just feel like it's just empowering for me as a social worker to be able to go and specialize in discharge planning in different areas of the world. Like, that's just so amazing to me. A lot of people don't get to experience that. And it just helps me. I feel it looks good on my resume. It helps me grow as a social worker. And it just helped me understand that, how policy changes in different states and, what's more effective in this state, that state. And everything I learn, no matter where I am, I always carry it on to my next assignment, or I can carry it with me to continue to do discharge planning. And it just makes me a better discharge planner.
And a better social worker.
Yes, better social worker for sure.
I love that you mentioned the different policies and laws in states. And I'm going to bring up, I don't feel like it's controversial, but like the compact that a lot of people are excited about and being licensed in multiple states. I'm licensed in multiple states. You're probably licensed in multiple states. A lot of the folks we know are. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is knowing the laws of that state and how important it is to know what's going on in that state as a social worker versus just getting licensed all of a sudden in 27 states and not having an opportunity to get to know what's going on with the laws and policies. Can you give me an example of I know you were in Kentucky recently. What was something that you saw that was different in Kentucky that you experienced that is different in Alabama?
So I will say, in Kentucky and Alabama, there were a lot of similarities, but one of the differences I saw was how guardianship is handled. And I also saw a difference in how effective certain insurances were in the state of Kentucky. I feel like in the area I was working in previously, in my home state, it was more difficult for people with Medicaid to get access to certain things. I did not run into that issue as much in Kentucky, and the process of guardianship in Kentucky was much easier than it was back home in my home state. And I'm not saying like that everything is totally different, but you can tell there are major differences. It you almost got guardianship in the snap of a finger. in Kentucky, in Alabama. From my experience in the hospital I previously worked at, it took months, sometimes almost a year for us to be able to get guardianship. And it's just not as many resources with getting that process. So that was big for me because I feel like that is one of the major delays in getting guardianship in the hospital. That keeps a patient in the hospital for a very, very long time past their medical need, and the insurance after a certain amount of time stop paying. So those patients are top priority. And to get them out in such a quick time frame, that was just mind blowing to me. I'm like, if we can have this same method, back home, that would save a lot. That would help a lot. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I love that you got to see that. And I like how you said earlier that you are becoming an expert in different states with discharge planning. And like that's you finding a niche and being able to take that and hone that in to the different states you're traveling in. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. So people tell me, I just finished one travel assignment in Kentucky, and I'm still PRN at my old job. So I always felt like it was a difference, like I would be different when I came back. But when I went back to work this week, I did 3 days at work, and people saw a difference in my work and my charting. So for them to be able to recognize it, I'm like, okay, well, that was my goal. Like my goal was to come back better, stronger, learn more, do more, and share this information with my fellow colleagues. Because and just with me coming back, I was able to be a resource for them immediately. I was only there 3 days. My charting was better. I was able to get things done faster, and I didn't realize it as much, but people told me. So I see a difference already, and I'm so excited to go to this next chapter to another state and see what I can apply from what I already know, but also what I can gain and use in my upcoming assignments or my upcoming career.
You're living out my favorite mantra about social workers being lifelong learners and being excited about learning something new in the state you're going into, but also taking what you've learned to help other social workers. And I know we hadn't got to how you got here yet, but I love just leaning into this travel social work area for a second. When you went to some of your other states, how did the social workers in those states help you become better than you were when you got there?
So, of course, like I said, everything is different in each state. Meeting other social workers in other states, they honestly, a lot of us have similarities. Because I noticed we all kind of have the same struggles, but us being a social worker, I feel like other social workers were more willing to help me, show me the ropes. Um, and with travelers, we do not go through a full process of orientation. You may get 5 days max of training, and then you're put out on the floor. They expect you as a traveler to just go with the flow, know things. So connecting with other social workers helped me. There was never a time that I couldn't ask one of the social workers questions. They were willing to help me. They were willing to tell me, oh, well, this is a resource. This is a resource. Like those, connecting with other social workers are resources, and it makes your job less difficult because you can use them instead of like going out trying to find out things the hard way or figure out things on your own. You don't have to navigate any of these places on your own because you have them there to help you and say, hey, well, this is how I handle this situation. Maybe you should try this. It's just bouncing ideas off of each other and, just helping get the goal accomplished for your client at the end of the day.
And that's what it's all about. Absolutely. That's, I think, too, why I love social work so much, because we do help each other and support each other. I'm going to go ahead and find out then how you got here. Tell me a little bit about your social work journey.
My social work journey started, when I was in high school, I never like just knew I wanted to be a social worker. Or growing up, I didn't say, "Oh, I want to go and be a social worker." I actually grew up wanting to be in entertainment or something like that. Like I don't know, I watched Disney Channel a lot growing up as a kid, so I was like, "This looks like a cool way to like live for the rest of my life." They're already having fun. So I just wanted to, I'm all about fun, good vibes, good energy. That's kind of what I wanted for myself. But as I got older, I kind of became that friend that a lot of people counted on, depended on, and trust. So I thought that I always thought I was a therapist to my friends. They came to me, they vented to me, they just poured down a lot on me. And I always obviously helped them. So initially I thought that my role in life would be to like be a therapist. So I went to school. I started out in psychology. I love, love, love psychology. Um, and as I navigated the psychology role, I found out about social work. My uncle, he went to school to be a therapist. He was a therapist, and I talked to him and he kind of encouraged me to take the social work route instead. And, he talked about how he wish he would have did that because it's almost like we were granted better opportunities, but it was kind of the same method. So I kind of took his advice. I tapped into social work a little bit. I was like, okay, I'll take this semester and take a few courses, and I actually end up enjoying it. So that's how I navigated into social work. I got my bachelor's from UAB, master's for University of Alabama, and social work has just been a part of my life ever since then.
I was going to ask you too, because I couldn't remember where you graduated from. And I know we've had a conversation way in the past. I'm going to help try to jar your memory about it. But we talked about you were at UAB, and UAB had just gotten their first MSW program, I think. And a bunch of you went to UA. Can you tell me that story again?
So I graduated from UAB in 2019. My very last semester of UAB was very hectic because the social work department was working on becoming accredited for their master's program. Um, Pretty much my whole class, they weren't accredited before, or they didn't have a program before, so we had already kind of made up our minds that we were all going to go to UA to get our masters. That was just the thing you did. You left UAB, you went to University of Alabama to get your masters. So once UAB did get accredited, our final semester, we were all excited and happy, and we were like, okay, well, we making we already knew the teachers. We were thinking that we were going to finish pursuing our degree at UAB because I love UAB. However, because the program was so new, a lot of us wanted to go ahead and get out in the field and work while we went to grad school. And with the schedule that was available, it was a lot of day classes, in-person classes, wasn't many online options. So that schedule just would not work with someone who is obviously working in the field of social work and trying to pursue their master's degree. So we kind of all still end up going into UA, but they are accredited now. That was just their first semester or first year being accredited. I'm pretty sure the program has grew now tremendously, and they do have those options available that we needed. But I was actually there at UAB while they were in the process of getting accredited. It was a wild time. It was a lot of pressure. Um, and I could tell our teachers were, our instructors were kind of spread thin with working on this accreditation, trying to get us through our finals. It was a lot, but it turned out to be a success. So our graduation was just like a celebration for us. It was a celebration for the school, everybody involved.
I love that. I appreciate UAB's commitment to furthering their profession and to make the master's program more accessible to students in Alabama. So, did you end up working and doing your master's at the same time at UA?
Yes, I did.
What was
Um,
that like? Were you in the field were you, and this was as a BSW?
yes.
Okay, tell me about that.
If I want to be honest, it was a lot. It was a lot. But I just feel like social workers are invincible. Like we can do anything. It was a lot. I was learning a new field while continuing my education. On top of working, trying to get your clinical hours and all of that done. It was a lot, but I don't regret it. As I look back on it, I've had that same drive since I graduated. Um, it's almost like just working and coming home is boring to me now. Um, when you get used to, because I worked in undergrad too. I've never been, I'm not a trust fund baby. I've never, I've had to work. Like I had to work while I went to school. So working those little college undergrad jobs versus being in a career and going to school is a new level. And I was able to do it, but I will say that, if you can do it, great, because everything you're learning in grad school is a plus because you can actually apply it to your job that you're working on. But if you're fortunate enough to be able to focus on one task at a time, I'm not against that either. But if you're like me, you find a way to make it work. You find a way to make it work. And I got through it. My GPA was still good. I was still able to you know, get through the program. And I actually went to the 2-year program because the 1 year advanced standing is, everything combined all in. It's a shorter time, but I feel like they need more of you. But I encourage people to do what works for them. But you can do it. You can go to school and still pursue a master's degree, get your education. It is possible. A lot of people.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. When I realized you had your BSW and you were in the field, one of the things in my career, I don't even know why I hold on to this thing, but one of the things that I don't call it a regret, but I'm like, oh, if I knew what I know now, I would have done this kind of energy, was I would have got my LBSW because I don't know why I didn't. And so I'm curious, did you get your LBSW as well, or did you go straight into the LMSW?
Honestly, no, I didn't get it. Because I'm one of those people that I knew that when I stopped going to school, I was gonna stop. I did not take a break between my master's and my bachelor's. And I actually talked to one of my instructors about it. And she didn't tell me that, it's pointless or anything, but she was just saying, once you get that master's degree, you're gonna have to go through this process again. And it made sense because I knew I was going straight through. I was going to get my experience with my bachelor's on this job. They didn't really require me to have a license, but when I did get my master's, it took me a while to get my LMS. So maybe if I would have went and had and did the test, that could have helped me. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I just didn't choose that route because I knew that I would have my MSW pretty soon. And I mean, and I was like, let me just not go through that twice. But to each his own. I think it's beneficial for people to get all the licenses you need.
And it didn't affect us either way. We're doing all right. But I'm curious, before we move into your LMSW journey, what was it like? Because I didn't work as a BSW, I went straight to my MSW program.
Mhm.
And what was it like for you? Because I find value in each level of our profession. So, what was it like being a BSW working in the field?
Mm. I felt like a baby social worker. The job I worked, it was a lot of BSW workers working with me. We were doing case management, in foster care. I think the token job for most of the people in our field is like, oh, go to DHR, go to DHR. I knew that I never wanted to go to DHR, but I have worked with people who work for DHR and they know a lot. They know a lot of resources. I don't think looking back on it, I don't think DHR would have been a bad idea, but it's just, I heard a couple horror stories and I was just like, well, let me start out somewhere different. And I worked with the kids after they were put into foster care. I never had to like go through the process of getting them in there. I feel like that would have just been a lot on a new social worker. Um, but my experience was good. I always knew I loved kids. I got to work with children in foster care families. And I did it for 5 years. So I was still working that job for years after I got my master's. That's how much I loved it. Um, and I learned a lot. That job molded me and it taught me a lot. And even though I didn't work for DHR, we were connected as a resource to DHR. So it helped me tremendously. Like, I went from working, my next job, of course, was not working with kids, but I always have love for kids. I always respect their job. They gave me my first opportunity. I actually had a job offer with them before I even got my BSW. They knew I went on my interview before I graduated. Um, and they were offering me a job before, so I felt good. I felt like I was somebody. I'm like, I got a job offer already. I don't even have a degree. So I'm like, okay, at least I know social work is one of those fields where I'm not gonna graduate and have an issue finding a job. Because I did have other, friends in college that had different experiences, but social workers, it's jobs out there. It might not be the one you want, but it's jobs out there for us. And I felt good. I felt like I had made the right decision about my career.
Absolutely. I tell people that there are jobs out here for social workers. And
Hmm.
again, I like that you said it may not be what you want, but if you just take sometimes you gotta I'm like the arrow, you gotta pull back in order to leap forward. And so I feel you're absolutely right. There's jobs out here for social workers. I wanted to ask you before I do that though, I just want to shout out to your uncle
Mm.
for steering you in this path. I always like to be able to just shout out the people who got us on this trajectory. So shout out to your uncle. What's his name?
My uncle name
Uh,
is Karen Hayden. I'm gonna say it proud.
to say it again, I didn't hear you.
Karen Hayden. Yep, he's a psychology major. He got his master's too, um, in counseling. And he's a supervisor now, up in the Anniston area. He's doing very, very good. My uncle is a very good person. I trusted the fact that I called him and reached out to him, let you know how much trust I had in him when it came to my career. He's always had his stuff together. So I'm so glad. Shout out to you, Uncle, because I don't know where I would be if I had not made that. I had an advisor. We have advisors in college. Um, but I was able to get what I needed more from my uncle, than anybody else. So I'm so glad I listened to him. I actually had a minor in communications also. So I wish I would have finished that because my last semester, I think I only had to take three classes and I would have had my minor in communications. I like communications too. I did. I could see myself. That's more of the entertainment side of me, and it's like the fun balance side of me. So yeah. But my uncle, I'm so grateful for him. I'm glad that I called him. I'm glad that I trusted him. I don't regret coming to this field at all.
Shout out to your uncle. I love that. And I'm so glad you brought back up the entertainment side of you because I always encourage social workers to, I do it. The things that I love, I pull it into my social work practice. And so, can you envision how you could potentially pull in entertainment with your social work practice?
Oh, I've thought about this. I have
Uh,
thought about this. One way I could do it is I would like to I love planning trips. My family knows that when it's time to take a trip, like I get excited about it. I'm looking for where we're gonna stay, the itinerary. I have everything detailed down to we land at this time. I love that. So I would like to create a retreat for social workers where we just we just go and I don't know, like people just feed us grapes. I don't want social workers to have to lift a finger for I'm not even gonna say a weekend. We need at least 4 days.
a week, a week.
Self-care. I mean, self-care in the biggest way. And I don't mean just my definition of self-care. Like I would like to, get to know people individually and create a specialized plan for them to pour into themselves before they, go back home to their normal reality. So I just like to create. I like to me, entertainment is creating a peaceful environment for others. My, some people they like to go home and they're entertained by like reality TV or whatever, but it's something that's entertaining about that to you. So you're enjoying it. So to me, entertainment can be whatever you enjoy. And I would love to create that space for people because I like to create it for myself and my family. I love for us to just have peace, have fun. Don't be a social worker for a while. And I always tell people social work is a spectrum. Sometimes I want to do something so far away from social work sometimes that, it just gives me that balance. Because I think as social workers, like I said, I've always been that role to people in my life. But sometimes when you come home, you don't want to be a social worker. I've been a social worker all day. Can I be somebody? Can I just be Lexis right now? I don't want to be this perfect Patty and this person who has it all together. Let me not have it together for a while. Because I need that. I need a chance to be human too, just like everybody else, and not be, held to a certain standard because I'm a social worker, because that's my career, that's who I am, true enough. But I'm also a person too, and I just want social workers to still be able to be people and not be judged for it.
Absolutely. And feel like they can in a safe space.
Yeah,
Alexis, you must be what God is sending me. My 2025 vision board is I want to do at least 4 retreats a year for the goddesses of social work. And I know the social workers. I need somebody to help me event plan it.
I
So,
would love to.
yes. So we are going to have to get together so that we can make this happen because it's so funny. I can't remember who I was talking to, but I literally said, I want social workers to just be fed grapes. I want y'all to just lay on the couch because grapes are my favorite fruit, and just have someone bring you grapes and maybe some wine and cheese.
Yes, we deserve that. We do.
Yes. But
Yeah,
I also want to create a space where we're learning as well. So when you go and we're getting fed grapes, we also can do some CEUs as well. And we can learn from each other because we're going to learn from each other anyway, just by being in each other's company. We might as well be able to take some CEUs home with us as well.
right. And those CUs that like they don't feel like, oh, I just got to get this CU, the feel good CU. And you do good with that, Renita. Your CUs are like, oh, I didn't know I needed that. I'm enjoying this. But it's like you're getting your hours at the same time. But it's like, no, I really needed this. So that's good too. Like, let me go and get what I need, but let's bring it all together. That would be so perfect. So perfect.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons with the CUs, or even what we were just talking about, and why I asked you the question, how can you do the thing that you thought you were going to do and combine it to the path that you ended up on, which was social work? And how can we pull those two things together? And so for the presentation CUs that we do, that's always what I ask folks. We just did the beauty of social work, and Christina did makeup and all of that. She loves that. And that was such a self-care, which our NASW Code of Ethics says that we need to be participating in. So she's talking to us about the beauty of social work, how to do our makeup, how to make it look professional, all of those great things, which was something that she loves and on the path that she is on, which is social work. And let's pull those two things together. So that is my vision for all of us. It's like, talk to us about the things that you love and how can we combine those things with social work. I'm a Gemini, so we always gonna we're always gonna have two sides of things. So yes, I'm excited, Alexis, for this. I cannot wait to continue to be on this path with you so we can make sure social workers are getting taken good care of and getting to learn and take some CEUs home with them as well. So this is good. Okay. I'm going to move on from your journey and ask you our next question. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, social work is one of the fastest growing professions in the United States. And what we know to be true is that we are on the front line for some of the toughest crises this nation has faced. Can you give me an example or examples of your frontline experience as a social worker?
My frontline experience, definitely working in foster care. I felt like I was for sure a frontline experienced worker, because we were on call 24/7, responding to crisis. Foster kids are very traumatized. And I revert back to foster care because hospital is a more laid back setting for me compared to when it comes to frontline. Even though you would think it's like, well, that's frontline work. But I'm not bedside. I'm thinking of, discharge planning, and just creating a safe plan for them when they go home. But when they come in, it's not really a big concern or issue for me to resolve. But foster care was totally different. Like I said, responding to crisis 24/7. I can't tell you how many nights I spent in the hospital with children who had got into a crisis, getting up out your bed, going to get this child, transporting them, or if they didn't go by ambulance, sometimes I'll have to transport them in my car or just get into the hospital because children are minors, they can't be left alone. DHR was not always able to find a sitter service for us. So to me, that's front line. Like I'm playing the role. These are my clients, but I'm also playing the role of their parent because their parent is not there. So I have to advocate and act as a parent. And sometimes, foster parents do participate, but all the time they don't. And when they don't, guess what? We have to step in because that child is in our custody as well. So you don't get to pick and plan when these things are going to happen. They just happen. And, you just have to respond. You have to respond the best way you can. So when I think of frontline, I'm like, you haven't seen frontline till you have to get up, get it out the mud, get your hands dirty and go figure some stuff out. You don't get to say no to things like that. You have to show up and you have to want to be there. When you, I know it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody wants to be in the bed, but when you show up, you have to, you have to show up ready to be there, or ready to respond, ready to show that empathy, show that compassion, be caring, and show up as a social worker. This is not, I know that we in this field we work a lot of 9 to 5s, but I worked a job where it wasn't that type of setting. It was, you get up, you respond to this crisis, and you show up for these children. They don't have anybody else. All they have is you, and we don't need you to have an attitude about it. We don't need you to, but think about yourself and the sleep you could be getting or what you could be doing. We need you to show up for these children. And they were these kids remember these moments. I have had to show up for people when their foster parents couldn't even show up for them. And it's not that sometimes they didn't want to. It's just that's just how the dice roll. And I still have children that have aged out of foster care, and they consider me like their parent because I showed up for them when they had absolutely nobody else. And it just melts my heart because it's like children just don't know how, a lot of children don't know how blessed they are. You don't have to have a perfect relationship with your parents, but to have a relationship with your parents at all, because everybody has not had that experience. So it's rewarding, it's tough, but it's rewarding. So that's what I think about when I think of frontline work.
Alexis, thank you so much for showing up for those babies. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you brought DHR back up again because I want to thank them too for doing the work that they do. I think they get a bad rap. I was one too. I was like, oh no, I'm never working at DHR. But I respect the folks who work at DHR and do that work. And I was like you, I didn't work at DHR, but I worked with jobs that were connected to Department of Human Resources. And so I knew the people in those buildings and they work hard, just like you were working hard for those babies. So thank you for that work. I know those babies appreciate it.
Yes, yes. And I want to do a shout out to DHR also. Those people are spread very thin. Um, they don't have a lot left in them, but they give what they have. And it just goes, like you said, it goes unrecognized. It's easy to criticize someone, but you're only seeing what they're doing for one client. You're not seeing the picture as a whole. So my hat goes off to them because they do a lot. And, you have to want to do it to be in there because you don't, what you're putting out, you're not even receiving half of it. So it's work. It's work that you everybody can't do it. Everybody's not built for it. So I salute them as well. Thank you for recognizing them and giving them their flowers as well. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right. Not all of us are built for it. And I think it's important, and that's a good point, not just for DHR, just for population, just talking to social workers out there. know what populations you aren't built for and don't apply for those jobs, right? Because just like what you said, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was a hospice social worker. So you can't plan any of that, right? And the hospice that I worked at, they called the social worker out when it was time. And so you have to go and you have to want to be there because you're supporting that family and that patient. And so know what you're built for and stay in those lanes. And there's a lot of lanes you can get in, but if you know that that's not your lane over there,
Don't do
let
it.
let the folks who are built for that lane. And DHR wasn't one of my lanes, but I would look over there and see them doing it and be like, wow, I'm impressed. And I'm in awe of those folks who are able to take care of just not just the babies that are there at DHR, but also the elderly that need their protection as well. So glad to be always able to give DHR workers their flowers. Alexis, what is one belief about social work that you started on this journey with that you feel has changed the most?
Oh, okay. Thinking back to when I was a young little naive social worker, I always thought that there would be happy endings. I thought that we could fix people. Everybody could be fixed. And I think I thought that, giving people resources that they need to fix everything would just solve everything. But the truth is that resources are limited and people still have struggles and they still have to figure things out just like the rest of us. Being a social worker, you are a guide, but a lot of the time, most people kind of still have to figure things out for themselves and you have to support that. Just realizing that, every ending is not always going to be happy. Everybody is not going to want what's best for themselves. You do your part. You continue to advocate, push, and motivate people, but that's only half of what needs to be done. So I think I pretty much got after my first few disappointments, it just running myself crazy of doing everything I could do. I started to realize that this work is rewarding, but you're not gonna always get what you want out of it. And I think that when young social workers coming into the field, their goal is just to help, 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 and you are helping. But once you realize that helping is only half of the part, you start to see that this could end two ways, and you always hope for the best, but you prepare for whatever way it goes.
That is so good, Alexis. And, also just want to speak to my standard or your standard of happy may not be the client standard of happy too, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that especially when I was teaching, I would talk to new MSWs about would be, the blinds. We would have some preconceived notions about what broken blinds in certain neighborhoods must mean if you grew up in those areas. And one of the things that I've learned being in the field in these social work streets is that could be somebody has 3 or 4 cats and the cats are tearing up the blinds and or they have toddlers and they're just like it's just easy to let them tear it up. But not having this preconceived notion of oh your blinds. The blinds is just an analogy for happy. The blinds just have to be perfect. Perfect in that particular house could be that they love their 4 kitties. They love their cats and they're going to let them look out the window or they're going to let their toddler be their toddler. And when they go to kindergarten, they might get some new blinds, but not prejudging what our standard of happy is versus what our client standard of happy could be and letting them, again, our NASW Code of Ethics says client's right to self-determination, right? And
Um,
letting them determine what their standard of happy is versus us thinking, oh, I know, and we don't, the client is always the expert. I know what would be best for you if you get to this level of happiness or get to this level of living, whereas their level of living looks completely different. And that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it their standard because the client is always the expert of their life.
that you said something in. I learned something just with what you just said. Because I know you use the blinds as a guide or a narrative that you were trying to portray, but it's like I actually had some neighbors that had very bad blinds, and I just wanted to get them some new blinds so bad. But that's what I would want, you know. That's what I would want because I'm like they must, need somebody to get them some. But no, they had a dog, and the dog liked the blinds, and it's just like if I was to get a new pair, it would have just still end up being the same way. But you're so right with that. It's every person's level of happiness is different. We have to remove ourselves sometimes of what we want and just honor what the client wants. And that's a big part of social work, like you said. Self-determination. What does this person want? You know, what do they want? What do they need? What makes them happy? And obviously it's not going to be the same things that we want for them, and we have to learn how to respect that. So I appreciate that. That was a great analogy.
Absolutely. I love analogies. It's my love language. I want to lean into this just a little bit longer because, when we do treatment plannings,
Hmm.
we often are cookie cutter in our treatment plan and because we're just so used to, but I think when we ask the client what do they want, you get more buy-in in regards to getting that treatment plan accomplished, and especially when you reassess and you're doing assessments and they're like, oh, yes, I want all of those things. And then 90 days later, they're like, you know what? I'll be okay with just a couch and not the whole furniture setting. The couch would just be just fine for me. And that's okay. I might want an ottoman, but they just want the couch, right? And so letting the client have buy-in on their treatment planning, I think makes your job a lot easier because then you're not going out and trying to buy a whole furniture set. You're like, okay, we're just going to get a couch and let them figure out where the best place for them to get the couch is. And then we're not doing all the work which leads to burnout. And it's their treatment plan and not our treatment plan, right?
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna move on. Oh, guess what? We're at our last question, or the last couple of questions, I'll say. And you kind of spoke to this just a little bit when you were talking to some of the social worker, the new baby social workers, but because social work is one of the fastest growing professions in the United States, what advice would you give to social workers who are going to be entering the field over the next few years?
I would say be open to different lines of work. Um, Most social workers, like I said, they just know they want to help others, but there are many different ways to accomplish this in this field. Don't get stuck. Don't ever settle or feel like you have to. And we talk about this a lot in supervision. Job hop if you have to. There is all I will always say that there is always, I don't care where you're working at, what you're doing, how much you're making. There's always a better opportunity. When one season ends, don't be afraid to step into the next one. Don't be discouraged. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be overwhelmed. I would tell them that also. I know that we are professions and everybody wants or it's expected for us to have it together, but it's okay to get therapy. It's okay to not be okay. I think every social worker needs therapy because we're pouring so much of ourselves out. That cup has to be refilled somewhere. Um, and just to practice self-care. We tell our clients, things that we may not even practice ourselves because we know that's what we're supposed to be doing, but hold yourself accountable the same way that you would your client. Be fair to yourself and, just take care of you so that you can be effective enough to take care of others and, just show up in the world, show up for yourself the same way you would show up for others. That's what I would tell, people that's coming into the field or, just navigating or, anything like that. I would definitely just try to drop those gems because I had people to kind of tell me, but when you're in it, you know how valuable and important these things are. I still kind of hold myself to all of these things today. And I think that's the reason that I've been able to strive in this field. I do see people get burnt out. I do see the good and the bad, but we are all responsible for our own journey. And if you take care of yourself, you will get through this journey the way that you're supposed to get through it.
And you can actually have fun in it and
Yeah.
fall in love with it like I have. Yes. One of my favorite quotes, I love that you said social workers get therapy. One of my favorite quotes, I think it's even my tagline in my email, is by Brene Brown. Every good social worker has a social worker,
Mhm.
because if you are holding space for hundreds of people in a year, you got to have somebody, and I say a team of somebody because I have a team of somebody holding space for you. So every good social worker has a social worker. Alexis, this is such an amazing interview. Are there any words of wisdom or advice you would like to leave our audience with today?
I do want to say one more thing,
Mhm.
because therapy may not be for, or some people may not feel comfortable with therapy, and that's okay also, even though I do highly recommend. But social work is the field of caring people. So I will say that even if I did not have a therapist, I would stay connected to a group of social workers. This supervision group that I'm in under you, Renita, is the group of support that I never knew I needed. Just being friends and having social workers in your corner, that is a form of, it's like our own support group. Um, so I just want to say, make sure that you are connecting with people like you and you guys are supporting each other. Um, that's all I that's all I wanted to say.
Alexis, it has been such an honor to have you in our community. You are like, we didn't get into this, but just being able to see, because you remember you were about to get stuck, and then you just shot out and you're blossoming and you're traveling and you're doing the thing and you're connecting to so many of the other women that are in this community. And it is a beautiful thing to watch. And it has been an honor to be on this social work journey with you. It really
Thank you.
has been.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you were here. If you liked this episode, please come back to hear more stories of the journeys through social work, and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. See you next time here on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.